Between reality and imagination blurs, and where the master of macabre holds court. Tonight, we invite you to step into the haunting realm of one of literature's most enigmatic figures, Edgar Allan Poe.
Edgar Allan Poe. Nearly a century and a half past his death in 1849, and still no one is as synonymous with the mystery and macabre literature world as Edgar. Now, he is America's first author to have made his entire living and his career off of his writing, which means Edgar was a very poor man. Writers didn't make that much back then, you see, so it comes with the territory. Now tonight, our traveling band has come here to present to you 4 of Mr. Poe's most famous works. As we do our Poe performances, we'll also be serving you cocktails in your seat. On your chairs, as you entered our speakeasy here tonight, you have little menus that I see you all fanning yourselves with. Now on that card, you'll find all 4 drinks that we'll be serving to you right in your seats. So just sit back and enjoy the show, and we'll be out to serve you as quickly as we can. If you have any allergies or aversions, or for some reason you came to a bar and you don't drink liquor, we'll do our best to accommodate you and give you something safer to drink, okay? Now, at the end of each one of these Poe performances, should you feel moved, you can clap and applaud. Give our performers accolade. I can assure you, we definitely appreciate it. But the more energy you give us, the better performances we're gonna give you. Can we do that, Santa Fe? Come on, we can do better than that. Somebody just got done presenting Edgar Allan Poe. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Now, I know it's a little warm in here. We find ourselves in a historic Masonic lodge. There's plenty to see within the building, so as you exit and make your way around, please make sure to take in the sights. That said, bathrooms are going to be back by the front where you came in, should anybody need them. If you need to step outside for some fresh air, these doors at the back of the auditorium do open for you. And as we exit, we're going to do just like Edgar and rise from the bottom to the top. When you leave, you will go up the stairs to the right, out the doors, and back out to the street in your vehicles. Now, as we make our way through the night and we serve our drinks, if you need anything at all, please let your performers know. Now, I can assure you that everything we do, we take the greatest pride in, and we are big fans of you and Mr. Poe. So, with that said, my friends, I present to you the first story of our night, The Telltale Heart.
Nervous, very dreadfully nervous. I was and am. How can you say that I am mad? No. The disease had sharpened my senses, not dulled them, and of all hearing most acute. Listen to how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It's impossible to say how the idea first entered my brain, for I loved my old man. He had never wronged me, never did me injury or disservice. For his gold I wanted none. Yet, I think it was his eye. Yes, that's it. He had a vulture's eye, a pale blue eye with a thin film over it. And whenever his gaze would fall upon me, my blood ran cold. So you see, I took it upon myself to kill my old man. and thus rid myself of that wretched eye forever. Oh. You think me mad? You'll do so no longer when I tell you the wise precautions I took the entire week before I killed him. You see, I was never kinder to the old man than I was during that week, and every single night, just before midnight, I would slowly, carefully open his chamber door and insert myself inside. Why, the death watches in the walls moved faster than I. And once fully inside, I would ever so gingerly open my lantern just a crack so a thin ray of light would shoot out and fall on the vulture eye. But you see, I had a problem. The eye was always closed, so it was impossible to do the deed. On the 8th night, I was even more cautious than normal as I entered his room. But on this night, perhaps he had heard me, for he stirs in his sleep, sitting bolt straight up in his bed, crying out to the darkness, "Who's there?" I froze. I did not move an inch. For an entire hour, I remained motionless as he sat there in his bed, staring into the darkness, just as I had done, night after night after night. Then, I decided to open the lantern just a crack, and a beam of light shot out and fell on the wide open vulture eye. And that is when I heard it for the first time. The old man's heartbeat. It grew faster and faster, louder and louder. His terror must have been extreme. I thought the heart must burst. And then, a new fear seized me. The sound would be overheard by a neighbor. No, the old man's hour had come. With a shout, I flung open the lantern, leaped into the room. He shrieked once and only once. I pounced upon the old man and dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed on top. And for a few moments longer, his heart continued to beat with a muffled sound. Until it stopped. The old man was dead. His evil eye will trouble me no more. You think me mad? Oh, you'll do so no longer when I tell you of the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. I worked in haste, but I worked in silence. As I dismembered the corpse, I first removed the hands, then the feet, the legs, the arms, and finally, blood, there was none. I caught every last. I then go back into the old man's chambers and carefully pry up 3 floorboards, stuff the body down below, and replace them so meticulously that no human eye, not even his, would ever detect the difference. Finally, at the 4 a.m. bell, there came a knock at the street door. When I went down to answer it, 3 gentlemen introduced themselves as officers of the law. A shriek had been heard in the middle of the night. Suspecting foul play, they had been sent to search the premise. I smiled. For what do I fear? Gentlemen, welcome. The shriek you heard was my own in a nightmare. My old man is conveniently out of the country. But please, come in, search well. I led them at great length all through the house until we finally come to my old man's chambers, where I showed him all of his prized possessions, safe, undisturbed. Why, in my own confidence, I even brought chairs into the room and bade them sit. Rest your fatigues. Why, I even brought a chair for myself and placed it above those very 3 boards. While the officers sat and smiled and chatted of familiar things, I cheerily answered all of their questions. They were satisfied, content. My calm demeanor had impressed them. But the entire time, I couldn't help but wish them gone. I began to grow pale. I began to develop a headache and a distinct ringing in my ears. And yet still, they sat and smiled and chatted. Oh, that ringing kept getting louder and louder. It was like the sound a pocket watch makes when enveloped in cotton, a dull, quick sound. By now, no doubt, I had grown rather quite pale. I began to speak louder with more influence. I began to pace the room, and still they sat and smiled. And still the sound kept getting louder and louder. Is it possible they heard it not? Oh my God, no. No. They heard. They suspected. They knew. They're making a mockery of my terror. Oh my God, anything would be better than this. I felt I must either scream or die. And I could bear their smiles no more. And the heartbeat was getting louder and louder. All right, I admit the deed. 10 of the plague's hair. Hair! It's the beating of his hideous heart.
How is everyone enjoying their 1800 style brandy milk punch? Now this is called the cat's meow. Around here, it's Edgar Allen Poe's favorite drink. He loved milk punches, and they were his go-to drink of choice whenever he was out at the pub. So if you don't like it, we tend to say that you have poor taste. But if you do like it, we think you have Poe taste. Yes. Now you see, Edgar's life was full of much strife, disease, and death, which is probably why these are the central themes of his works. He was born in 1809 in my own hometown of Boston, Massachusetts, to two actors, David and Elizabeth Poe. But just 1 year after his grand entrance into the world, David steps away from the family, never to be heard from again. Scumbag. And then, unfortunately, just 1 year after his father disappears, Edgar's mother falls ill with a disease that would plague his life for the rest of his days. Now, this disease is called tuberculosis. Remember it, and remember it well. Once his mother's gone, he has no other family, except for his brothers and sisters, and they're separated. And Edgar is sent to Richmond, Virginia, to live with the Allen family, who, even though he stays with them well into his young adulthood, they never formally adopt him or make him a real part of the family. And unfortunately, the only person who liked him there was his stepmother. And a few years after Edgar makes it to Virginia, she starts to fall ill. First, she gets a cough, and she can't seem to leave the house. And then she gets weak, and she's stuck in her bed. And then finally, she can't leave the bedroom, and she passes away from a horrible disease known as, it's called tuberculosis, dude. I just said it. Pay attention. Now, as his stepmother passes away, Edgar's left with his stepfather, a cruel and stern man from a military background. So needless to say, the two of them, they don't really get along. And his stepbrother, not a nice guy. So Edgar doesn't exactly know what to do. He's very uncomfortable. And because he's not a real member of the family, he goes to his stepfather and asks what he should do. And he says, Edgar, you need discipline. You need structure. So he enrolls him in West Point Military Academy. And only a few months in, Edgar realizes this isn't gonna work. You see, he's not a military man. No, Edgar would rather spend his days at his desk, writing away about all the things that plague his mind and his life. So he recluses away from his peers, drops out of the academy, and he starts writing. And he finds companionship in animals, specifically cats. And that's probably why they're a central theme of his work. He tends to write about animals more than he writes about people. And this next story is no different. My friends, the Black Cat.
For the most wild tale, which I am about to tell, I neither expect nor solicit belief. Mad indeed would I be to expect it, but mad am I not, and very surely do I not dream, for tomorrow I die. and today I wish to unburden my soul. My express purpose in appearing before you all is to lay before the world, plainly, a series of mere household events, but events that nevertheless have terrified and destroyed me. And so, to begin, you see, I was quite young when I married. My wife, seeing my love of domestic animals, spared very little time nor expense in procuring for me as many as she possibly could. And many we had. This story is about one animal in particular, a cat, to be exact. Now, this cat, whom I nicknamed Pluto, was an enormous, beautiful, and entirely jet black animal. And he was the one that I liked best. So much so that my wife would joke often that I must be under some spell of a witch in disguise. So I alone fed him. But in turn, he followed me all around the house and even in the streets. Now, this beautiful relationship of ours lasted for many, many a year. That is, until I began to change. For the worst. See, I grew day by day more irritable, moodier, more regardless of the feelings of others. And though I tried not to hurt anyone, friends, this disease, you see, it grew within me and it took hold of me. To cope, I drank every day, altogether much more than I should. But to that effect, one evening I came home to find, because of my intoxication, the cat avoided my presence. This angered me greatly, and so I seized him. Just then, in his fright at my violence, the cat bit my hand, and though it was just a nip, the fury of a demon instantly possessed me. I knew myself no longer, so I withdrew from my waistcoat pocket a small pocket knife, opened it, grabbed the poor beast by the throat, and I deliberately cut one of the eyes from its socket. I shudder. I blush, even as I tell this horrible deed. But you know, friends, the cat slowly recovered after this. No longer appearing to be in any pain, he was free to move about the house as usual. As might be expected, he fled at any sight of me. And this, in turn, began to anger me. To the point that one evening I had had enough, and so in cold blood I slipped a noose about his neck, and I hung him from the limb of a tree. But you have to understand, friends, I had to do this, even if it placed my soul far beyond the reach of the most merciful God. I hung him with tears streaming down my face because I knew that he had loved me. They had made no offense. But regardless, I found that the cat would have his revenge either way. For that very night, everything I owned would be destroyed in a terrible house fire. All my possessions, my wealth, gone. 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 All burnt up. I resigned myself to despair and squalor, moving from tavern to tavern as I could not bear the sight of our filthy poverty any more than I possibly had to. And this went on for months, until at last one evening as I sat in my usual drunken stupor, my attention was drawn to a small object in the corner of the room. It was a cat almost entirely like Pluto, save for a small patch of white upon the breast of this otherwise black cat. Oh, I reach out my hand, and to my surprise, the cat rose and pushed his back affectionately against me. Well, seeing as he had taken a liking to me, I offered to buy it off the innkeeper. But he claimed he had never seen it before. Well, My new friend and I then made our way for home, where he domesticated himself at once and even became a great favorite with my wife. But as for me, I soon found a dislike for it, arising within me. And though this is just the opposite of what I had intended, not only did I feel disgust and annoyance at this creature, but also a growing dread as well. This is no doubt on account of the discovery we made after we brought him home, that like Pluto, he too was missing an eye. And the patch of white upon his breast over time began to resemble that of the hangman's noose. But the circumstance, however, only endeared it to my wife even more. And though I avoided this creature at every possible turn, I found this vile beast would not give me a moment's peace. He followed me around the house. If I sat in my chair, he would get beneath it. If I rose to walk, he'd get between my feet and thus nearly throw me down. And though I dared not lay a finger on this animal, I began to hate this cat. It took everything I possibly had, not to hate everything and everyone around me. And so here we are. Yes, the climax of our little story. You see, my wife asked me to retrieve something from the cellar of our home. I descended the steep steps, and the beast pursued me, thus nearly throwing me headfirst to the bottom. I snapped. My fear of this beast would stay my hand no longer, so I withdrew from the wall an axe, and I swung in my wrath, to which I aimed a blow at the cat intended to be fatal. And I tell you, friends, it would have been fatal had it not been for the intervening hand of my wife. But enraged by her interference, I withdrew my hand from her grasp, and I buried the axe in her brains. She fell down upon the spot without a sound. No! Oh, God! Oh, God! I have to hide the body. I have to... Yes! The well! Outside! No, the neighbors might see. Oh, God. Oh, God. Yes. Yes, I'll chop it up into 1,000,000 pieces, and I'll burn it with fire. Oh, no, the smell. Oh, God, please stop. Please, God, stop! Please, please, stop! Finally, I determined to wall it up in the cellar, as the middle-aged monks would have done. Oh, friends, there was no doubt in my mind that I could easily make it so that no eye could easily tell the difference. And so, by means of a crowbar, yes, I began to pick at the stones, one by one. Then I propped the body of my wife up against the inner wall in an upright position. And then after I had replaced the stones, I prepared a plaster that could not be distinguished from the old. And I went over the new brickwork. The result? Marvelous. And the best part, that damn cat never returned. Though I did not search for it. But I tell you, friends, I slept in bliss each night. neighbors stopped by, asking about my poor wife's health. Oh, but I answered them with ease. Worry not, friends, she's just away. But then several officers of the law approached my residence, intent on searching the premises. Well, seeing as they could not find a shred of evidence to my guilt, I allowed them to search the house bit by bit. Oh, and search they did, friends. Hours upon hours, searching every nook and cranny until at last they were satisfied and made their way to depart. My clever planning had fooled them. And in my triumph and my desire to make doubly sure of my guiltlessness in their eyes, I cried, "Gentlemen, I am delighted to hear of my innocence and hope you have enjoyed your stay in my lovely home." This is a fine old house, is it not? The walls, yes, the walls, you say, of this house are very sturdy indeed. And as I spoke, I struck with my stick the very spot behind which lay my dead wife. But no sooner had the reverberation of my blow sunk into silence than it was answered by a cry from within the tomb, muffled, like that of a child, but growing to a wailing. Screaming now, sounding like the voices of the damned, crying out in pure agony, and the demons delighting in their torment, in my torment. For a second, the police officers stood looking at each other. Then quickly, they began to pick at the stones, one by one, until at last they uncovered the rotting and decaying corpse of my dead wife. And atop it sat that hideous beast, his red maw agape and his singular filthy eye of fire. He had been the one crying out his revenge. The cat who scraps seduced me into murder, and whose tattling voice has sentenced me to death. To the hangman, I had walled the monster up within the tomb.
His writing gets stronger and stronger, and he enters what is known to most of us as the happiest point in his life. You see, young Edgar has finally found love. Aww, right? Yeah, hold that. You see, the issue is this. Edgar is now 27 years old. And the young lady in question, none other than the one, Miss Virginia Clem, who's 13. Also Edgar's first cousin. Right, so as strange and off-putting as this may be to my good friends here in Santa Fe and our world, I can assure you that back then, this was super duper weird. It was weird. It was really weird. We're just gonna forget that. But as off-putting as it was, the marriage was blessed by none other than Virginia's own mother. Not only did she give him her blessing to get married, but she also swore that she would stay with the couple and help them through the hard parts of their marriage. Not just for the course of the marriage, but until they died. Imagine having to live with your mother-in-law until your wife is gone, and then until she goes, and then, no thanks. But the happiness is short-lived. You see, as Virginia gets older and climbs into her early 20s, she starts to get sick. First, she feels really unwell, and she takes to her bedroom in her bed. And then next thing you know, she can't get out of her bed. And a lot of people think that Edgar is pushing his young wife into an early grave with his themes of loneliness and companionship in animals and death and disease. And now, the untimely demise of young women. But we know it's not that. It's just a disease. It's called tuberculosis. Ah, yeah, see, they were listening. Come on, man. Now, Edgar writes probably his most famous story at this time. He sells it to a local paper for just $3. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot, but to us, it would be a couple $100. Not bad for one story, right? But Edgar, there's something eating at him. You see, he's up late at night and his wife is sick, and he's stuck in his bedchamber. And he starts to imagine what life might be like without a partner by his side. And he begins to write late into the night. And he starts to hear a tapping coming from his chamber door. My friends, we present The Raven.
Once, upon a midnight dreary, as I pondered, weak and weary, as I nodded off, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping at my chamber door. Must be some visitor, I muttered to myself. Only this, and nothing more. Distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December. The fireplace now filled with only dying embers. Ghosts crept into my mind. Eagerly I wished to forget the sorrow and sadness of my lost love, Lenore. Oh, my Lenore. Just then I heard it. The rustling of each purple satin curtain filled me with terrors like never before. To calm the intense beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "It is some visitor at the entrance at my chamber door. Yes, some late visitor at the entrance of my chamber door. It is this, nothing more." "Sir, madame, my apologies. I was napping, and so faintly you were tapping, I thought no one to be at my chamber door. Yet here I open wide the door. Darkness, and nothing more. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, 'Lenore!' This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, 'Lenore!' Just this, and nothing more. Soon again, I heard this tapping, somewhat louder than before. Surely that is something scratching at my window. Must be the wind. Nothing more. I threw open the window shutter, and therein fluttered a jet-black raven into my chamber room. Perched just above my chamber door, there it sat, and did nothing more. Then this ebony bird did begin to make me smile, with his grave and stern appearance. "Ah, tell me, little raven, what is your name?" Then said the raven, nevermore. I was shocked to have the silence broken by his one repeated word. Oh, I'll bet his master beat him. All hope left him, never to return. So I pulled my chair in front of the raven atop my door, staring him eye to eye could he mean by croaking nevermore? I swore I smelled her scent. As the air became more dense, God sent you because of Lenore. Poor, forgotten Lenore! Again, the raven said, nevermore. Be you a prophet, a bird, or a thing of evil? Who sent you here? Can I not just heal? To this, all the raven said was nevermore. Please, I beg of you, are you here because of my long-lost beloved Lenore? Might we be together again one day, perhaps in heaven, far away? Again, the raven said, nevermore. Oh, be this our word of parting. Bird or fiend, you lie! Go back from whence you came! Fly away and leave no trace, not a single bloom can be in this place! Leave my loneliness unbroken! Leave from atop my chamber door. Take your beak from out my heart! Then quoth the raven, nevermore.
To keep his word straight, and people don't understand him. So when he wanders his way up to the barkeep and asks for a drink, he's turned away into the cold street outside. He stumbles out onto the cobblestones, where he trips over his own feet and falls into the street and bangs his head. Some passerbys notice that Edgar has fallen, and they call out for medical attention. But by the time they can get to him, it's too late. He's unconscious and bleeding. He's rushed to the hospital, and just 3 days later, Mr. Poe takes his leave from our world. Now, no one's quite sure exactly what happened to Edgar, and I personally think this is the way he would have liked it. One last cliffhanger, you know? But with his exit, enters a new character. You see, in 1949, 100 years later, someone new shows up to carry on his legacy. Enter the Poe Taster. Yes, you see, an unknown admirer of Mr. Poe decides that he's going to visit him on the anniversary of his death every year. So he makes his way to Edgar's grave, where he leaves a half-drank bottle of brandy. Now, we're unsure whether or not he was toasting to Edgar or pouring one out for the homies. But he also left 3 roses, the petals of which we had petrified and crushed up and topped your final drink with. Cheers, my friends. Now, it's an inevitability. None of us can escape it. Death will come for us all. So, why not be like Poe and embrace it? With this, we give you the penultimate act of our night, the Red Mask of Death.
Long had the Red Death been feasting upon the countryside. No sickness, a greater killer, no disease more terrifying. Blood was its mark, along with sharp pains in the body and the mind running in circles inside the head. And then there was the bleeding from every pore in the body, though the skin had not been cut or broken. So terrifying, the appearance of the diseased, covered in head to toe with red spots, that no man, woman, or child dared reach out a hand to help. And from beginning to its frightful termination, the disease lasted no more than 30 minutes. When Prospero, the ruler of the land, saw that half his people had died, he called to him 1,000 happy, healthy friends, and together with him they would abscond off to one of his many palaces far, far away. Inside, locked behind the large iron gates and tall concrete circular walls, they could hide away from the Red Death, leaving it out in the rest of the world and the rest of the world to deal with it. Inside, Prospero would provide them everything they needed. There would be music and dancing and entertainment. There would be good food to eat. And cocktails to drink. Cheers, my friends. 5 months pass, and Prospero decides to hold a grand masquerade for his loyal subjects to help bolster their spirits. Everyone was invited, and everyone was required to wear their finest clothing and their best mask. There they would dance the night away inside Prospero's winding palace, although little more than one room at a time could be seen through these winding corridors, and each room as eccentrically decorated as the castle was in full. Each room adorned with 3 pointed Gothic windows of stained glass, the color matching the room itself. In the first room, the blue room. Blue was the color of the walls, ceilings, and carpet. In the next room, the purple room. Purple were the tapestries that hung on the walls. In the third room, the green room. Green were the topiaries that adorned the walls. The next was yellow, then white, then violet. But the 7th room was different. The 7th room was black, black as night, and a thick, heavy black cloth ran down the walls and across the floor. But in this room, the windows were a different color. These windows were a deep scarlet. They were blood red. And in the back of this room stood a tall black oak grandfather clock. And at the top of each hour, it would chime with a deep resonating voice, as beautiful as music, so much so it commanded the attention of all the maskers, who would stop in the revelry and look at the clock in awe until it ceased chiming. Then they would return to the masquerade. And what a fine masquerade it was! As the dancers moved room to room, the light from the tinted windows cast strange shadows indeed across their bodies. But few dancers dared to go into the Red Room for the terrible closeness of the Red Death she bore. Close to midnight, after the grandfather clock had finished chiming its last tone, these masqueraders noticed a stranger in their midst in the first room, the Blue Room. What a strange masquerader indeed to get their attention. They gossiped at first in awe, but soon that awe turned to horror. This masquerader was a tall, thin man, dressed head to toe as a dead man prepared for the grave. And his mask was so much like that of a dead man, the nearest eye could not tell the difference. And all of this might have been permissible in such an extravagant masquerade as this. However, this masker dared to dress as the masquerade, or the mask of the Red Death, covered head to toe in red spots and bloody patches. When Prospero saw this masker, he cried out in rage, "Who dares? Grab him! Seize him! Rip off his mask so that we may know whom to hang from the battlements at dawn." But no one was brave enough to lay a hand on this stranger. He passes within a few feet of Prospero as he slowly begins to walk room to room with a slow, measured step from the blue room to the purple, from the purple room to the green, from the green room to the yellow, from the yellow room to the white, from the white to the violet. And as he walked, Prospero charges in behind, knife held high. He gets but a few inches from the strange masquerader. He turns and looks Prospero in the eyes. A cry is heard, and the shiny knife falls upon the black floor. Prospero drops dead. The bravest of the brave, the strongest of the strong, rush in to grab this masquerader who loomed against them, standing next to the tall grandfather clock. But as they reached into his clothing, they realized there was no body. There was no form. There was nothing. It was then they realized that they had been visited by the Red Death itself. And one by one, each of the masqueraders fell dead. And the fires died. And the music died. And darkness and death and the Red Death ruled over all forevermore. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys have a good show. Did you enjoy the drinks? A show like this would not have been possible if it wasn't for the amazing talents of your cast and crew. Make a round of sound for your bartenders, your servers, your buzzers, your storytellers, your narrators, your light, your sound crew. Can you believe we did all this with just 6 of us tonight? Now, friends, we are a traveling group of performers. We do feed our families on the generosity of others. For those of you in the audience that have inquired about tipping, the cast will be by the doors as you exit, holding on to their tip cauldrons. Please shower them with your gratuity as you go. And if you don't carry cash, we're more modern than Poe. We carry Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, Zelle. Just ask. On behalf of the entire crew, we thank each and every single one of you for coming out tonight. It's because of good people like you supporting the arts that we get to live our dreams, traveling coast to coast, keeping Poe's work alive. So thank you so much. Please get home safely. Come back and see us again. Thank you and good night.